against the public workforce and to scapegoat civil servants, to go after their unions, and not just in states where collective bargaining rights are relatively weak, but where they're strong. California, Massachusetts, New York, and so forth, where the scope of public sector bargaining has been closer to private sector bargaining for many years. And you know, the whole strategy of the powers that be is to convince us, you know, that there's no alternative to these cuts in jobs and services and to the pay and benefits of those who provide, who do public sector work, that, you know, our future, whether we're in the public sector or the private sector, is one of austerity and wage stagnation and reduced benefit coverage and healthcare cost shifting and reduced living standards. You know, you can see this reflected in the kind of desperate quotes of somebody like Jordan School District School Board President, Peggy Jo Kennett. When you're looking at a $30 million shortfall, you don't have anywhere to go, right? That's what they need to close their budget gap for that school district with 50,000, 80,000 students or more for the fiscal year 2010-2011. And, you know, the plan they've come up with is larger class sizes, and in addition to the 200 support staff already laid off, 250 more teachers will lose their jobs, and 250 others folks involved in administrative and support jobs. You know, one of the points that we made at a similar conference in December in Burlington, sponsored by Jobs with Justice and Labor Notes, is that there are some alternatives, and it doesn't take a lot of kind of heavy-duty anti-war math on the cost of the, say, war in Afghanistan to figure out where some of these problems might actually be solved and how. I mean, Tyler, if you were here last night, talked about what our long-term investment in Iraq might have bought in terms of alternative energy, in terms of a conversion from fossil fuel dependency to other forms of energy for this state and for the whole country. Our second war, and this is why, again, I think it's so important that both labor people and anti-war people come together and figure out how to work together on this. Our current and thanks to Obama, escalating involvement in Afghanistan is now costing us $2 billion a week. That's about $280 million a day, about $11 million an hour. So let's, you know, very quickly acknowledge, as is rarely done, that if you wanted to plug the $30 million gap in the budget for this one school district, for the next year, all you'd have to do is stop the war in Afghanistan for 3 hours, 4 hours, and divert the money, and the teachers wouldn't be laid off, the classes wouldn't be getting larger, the support staff could be recalled to their jobs. If you
4 hours, everybody could get a raise.
Yeah, 4 hours. Get a raise. Just another couple of quick examples. You know, the Utah public safety crisis, the impending layoff of state troopers. I don't know, maybe that'll be fewer speeding tickets for some people, but it might also be delayed response time to highway accidents, all kinds of other problems. You know, that little budget shortfall could be also cured by stopping the war in Afghanistan for a similar short period of time, a few hours, and diverting those small amounts of money to the public safety budget. You know, the $16 million that is the shortfall that would have this terrible impact on people with disabled kids and low-income pregnant mothers. You know, that would take shutting down the war for about an hour. And you could even fix the underfunding of the Utah public employee pension plan by the greater sacrifice of shutting down the war for about 2 weeks. So, I mean, this kind of puts in perspective what our current national fiscal priorities are, and the need for us, as kind of a militant minority, if you will, people with an alternative view of how the economy could work and how our federal budget priorities should be prioritized. You know, it shows, I think, the kinds of arguments that we need to make when our neighbors and our friends on school boards, in the state legislature, people whose jobs and services are at risk, need to start thinking out of the box, right? That it's not just all about a pool of money here in Utah that is being parceled out in stingier and stingier fashion. There's larger resources in this country that are being massively deployed in a destructive and very bad manner. And I think the tragedy of what we see going on in our society today is that working class people are being asked to pay in multiple ways for these foreign wars as members of the National Guard and the Army Reserve, and as people in the armed services who've been faced with multiple deployments to Iraq and to Afghanistan. Back home, as taxpayers, we're being taxed for these adventures while needed public services are being cut, and many people whose jobs depend on providing those services, or if they're unemployed from a private sector job, taking advantage of them, they're being hurt as well. So why don't I close there, turn things over to Rand, and once again, I want to applaud this particular group for integrating a discussion of all these issues, because they are related. They're not going to be solved in separate boxes, and look forward to follow-up discussion.
Wilson, and I have a hybrid job where I work for really two unions that have membership in the telephone company and in the telecom industry, the Communications Workers of America and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW. They jointly fund my job, and then that's facilitated by the AFL-CIO. So I have three entities that I kind of have to be accountable to. And I am part of in the AFL-CIO, I'm part of a group called the Strategic Campaigns Department of the Organizing Department. And, but today I'm really here as a fellow Jobs with Justice traveler and longtime activist within the Jobs with Justice network, both at the local level in our Massachusetts Jobs with Justice chapter, where I was previously the director of that group, and a Jobs with Justice coalition builder, and then briefly worked for a year for the National Jobs with Justice umbrella organization that's based in Washington on healthcare issues in 2004. And I still, while have no official portfolio with Jobs with Justice, still remain, like Steve, very active in trying to build our local coalition and work with others around the country to strengthen and build their coalitions, and hopefully make that network of coalitions as strong as it can possibly be, so that we're more than the sum of our parts, and have a national network. And I want to talk a little bit about that at the end. I guess the thread that I want to pick up on with Steve's thing in the discussion today is supposed to be focused on revitalizing the labor movement, and that is a challenging prospect in the face of those daunting numbers. But it seems to me that the most important thing is to recognize that there is a labor movement going on all the time. And the question is, how in touch is the kind of our coalitions, our individual unions, how in touch are we with that labor movement? Because I know a couple of people here are just work in different jobs in different places. Every day on that job, you're faced with some sort of, the indignity of having to be a wage slave, and being, your schedule, your pace of work, your